Thanks for speaking to us. Strike, who's calling. I have to ask the obvious, the elephant in the room question with any detective drama, which is, in a TV landscape dominated by procedurals and detective dramas, what was it about this one in particular that you looked at and thought, that's the one for me?
Well, I feel like that should roll off my tongue because I did give a lot of thought to that when taking the job. I think it was that tonally, the books felt so brilliantly varied, and it felt like that's what we were aiming for with this, and I think that is what we achieved. It's funny with television, you often, you come to a scene and you bring an idea about how it's going to, be a different, detailed, arresting moment, and occasionally people start saying things like, I don't know, I just think tonally, I just think tonally, and you think, oh, tonally, okay, we only allowed one tone, or one tone per scene, or one tone per ep, or one tone per series. I think the moments which people are really involved is when things have, sharp edges within a scene of something going from being funny to being dark, or being sad to being whatever. That's what this material had, and that's what seemed to be the aspiration for the show.
So how's the experience working with Holiday Granger as your sort of on-screen partner? How's that go?
Holiday's just perfect. She's brilliantly focused, but she's really fun, and she's not like focused. She's like focused, and a good laugh, and was, ahead of me every step of the way. I just sort of,
So in terms of the character, because the character comes from basically three angles. You've got the detective angle, you've got the veteran angle, and you've got the disability angle. Which one came in which sequence for you when it came to tackling the character at first?
If I felt that it was, and I thought about this a lot, I thought if this is exclusively about somebody who's disabled, then I probably shouldn't be me doing it. Disability doesn't define anybody, ultimately. But I certainly felt there were so many different elements to him. And I did think it was very much a detective show, and that there was as much as it was a character piece, we shouldn't get lost in that. We should remember that, it's as much about the people coming into it as it is about us. It's as much about all the suspects and the victim and the killer, and those scenes have to be given just as much time and just as much weight. And we've had brilliant actors coming in all the way through to do that stuff. And then what was the third thing you said? Detective,
veteran, disability.
And the veteran thing was very, very important to get right, and I think there is more of that in the books. There's this whole world of people communicating online, to try and retain that sort of feeling of collectivity that you have in the army, and I suppose that was hard to put in, because it was hard to put everything in, but all those things were important, and I don't know, I think there's probably room for all of them to be brought in more in the future.
Obviously, I've never started an adaptation of a book, so I don't know the answer to this question. But when you're presented with the script for the first, for instance, Strike TV show, and you have the novel on the other side, do you take the novel on at first and then treat that as the background to the story?
Yeah. No, I think that's probably the best order to do it in. And it's worth rereading several times, and then there's absolutely a point where, I suppose in the same as if you were writing a screenplay, there's a point where you put it down, and let it be something else.
So London itself is a very integral part of the Strike series, and was that something that particularly drew to this character, that he was very much a Soho character, that he was a character defined with a location?
Yeah, and I was desperate to do a job in London again, a filming job in London, and because it's amazing how fast London changes, and when I went off to do Musketeers, I kind of I was certainly Soho. I knew like the back of my hand, all the way from sort of Soho to Bloomsbury, Fitzrovia, Holborn, I just was like, you know, I didn't think about where I was going. I just got there and I got back and I was a bit like, oh, hang on, yeah. And so that was really nice. My grandfather spent a lot of time around Fitzrovia. So there's a whole association, and Bloomsbury association there. And it's been very nice to feel part of, I mean, in terms of being recognised now, I do feel like there's a slightly different quality to it. I do feel, I get in a cab now and, you know, I feel like I'm being recognised as part of the landscape of Soho, certainly, and I quite like that.
OnScreen.